Start, I would like to remind you of a few housekeeping arrangements. If you wish to speak, please can you indicate that you wish to do so. To enable your microphone, please press the middle button, which will turn green, and the microphone will light up red at the top. Please also remember to press the middle button when you have finished speaking. It is particularly important that all members use their microphone so that the audio can be picked up by the live stream. In the event of a fire, the fire alarm will sound during the meeting. Please stand and follow the meeting administrator to the fire evacuation point outside the building. This meeting is being filmed on the Council's YouTube channel for live and subsequent broadcast. The whole of the meeting will be filmed, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed to have consented to being filmed. By entering the meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings being webcasting and or used for training purposes. Thank you. In the room here with me at Pathfinder House are the following. We have Councillors Clark and Jordan, members of the subcommittee, Elizabeth Lanline, apologies if I've mispronounced it, the Council's legal advisor, and Democratic Services. I will now ask officers from the licensing team to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Sarah Marden. I'm the licensing officer for Huntingdonshire District Council.
Thank you. Would those representing the applicant please now introduce themselves? Please state your name and in what capacity you are here to represent the applicant. Thank you.
There we go. There she blows. I'm Simon Baker. I'm the DPS or registered DPS for the Lancaster Club.
Thank you. I will now ask interested parties to introduce themselves. Oh.
Oh. Yes, hi, I'm Dominic Ricciardi. I'm the owner of the Lancaster Lounge. Thank you.
I will now ask the interested parties to introduce themselves. Please state your name and who you are representing. Please also indicate if you intend to address the subcommittee this morning.
Morning. My name's Des Watt and I live on the opposite side of the road to the Lancaster Lounge, and I would like to speak at the appropriate time.
Brilliant, thank you. Is there anyone else I haven't covered? I think that's everyone. So, item 4, licensing subcommittee procedure. You would have received within the hearing papers that were circulated to you a copy of the licensing subcommittee procedure. The hearing will commence under this procedure. Any representations that have been made should be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Do any parties present have any questions of clarification at this stage? This should relate to the procedure only. No, thank you. Item 5, the hearing. I will now invite the licensing officer to present the application.
Thank you very much. Let's see. So, as Huntingdon District Council as the licensing authority, we received an application for a new premises licence from Mr. Domenico Riccardi. Perfect, thank you. On behalf of the Lancaster Lounge Limited for the premises, the Lancaster Lounge at 152 Main Street in Yaxley. The application was received on the 18th of January 2024. And as required under the Licensing Act 2003, a notice of the application was advertised, the blue notice was advertised on the premises for a period of 28 days. A copy of the original application and the plan and the premises location plan is in your agenda packs and are Appendix A, B and C. The premises licence application applied for the activities of sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, performance of live music indoors and outdoors, the performance of recorded music indoors, and provided opening hours to members of the public. I won't go into detail about the actual hours because they've changed slightly anyway. That application resulted in four valid representations received from other persons. However, during the period of consultation and some mediation, that was reduced to two of those were withdrawn, so we will remain with two valid representations at this time. During the period of consultation where mediation has taken place, initially, the police made contact with the applicant and had agreed some additional conditions to be attached to the licence, and they can be seen at point 4 on the appendix there, in the agenda pack there. Again, I won't read all of them, they're there for you to see. And as far as I'm aware, they're still in agreement, aren't they? Perfect, thank you. So the conditions there just need approving from yourselves that were agreed with the police. And in addition to those, there was a change in the application form following the notification that there was a existing planning condition that restricted the timings of the operation of the business, which actually contradicted the hours that were applied for initially in the application form. So following it again, a mediation with the applicant, the hours of the application were again changed to be in line with the planning consent. So the application has been amended somewhat, and you can see that at point 1466A and further following on there in your report. So the times have changed and have been reduced somewhat in line with the planning consent. In addition to the times changing, there was a additional condition added because of the planning consent in terms of the external customer area. Again, that can be seen there. External customers area will not be used after 2300 on any day. Those timings have been agreed and amended in the application by the applicant already. So those changes, along with the police conditions, were notified to the two remaining, or to all the representatives, and subsequently 2 of those were withdrawn based on those changes. We do have 2 still outstanding. One of them has not attended the hearing today, and we do have the other one here today, Mr. Watt. At this point, I'd just like to clarify that the decision made will be based on should be based on the amended application as detailed in the report, and hopefully we'll get a decision today from your good selves. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions for the licensing officer?
Yes.
It's really for clarification, really, for members of the public, that because there's been a lot made about it being in a conservation area. So am I right in thinking that because it's in a conservation area, it doesn't have any effect on the licensing application? I just want clarification of that, please.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In terms of licensing, that's not something we would normally consider. That would come under a planning issue.
So I take there's no more questions. Does the applicant or his representatives have any questions? Do any other interested parties having any questions? Questions only. Thank you.
Chair, I think that most of the questions will come out in my notes when I address you at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask the applicant and his representatives to address the subcommittee for not more than 20 minutes and to call any witnesses if relevant. Thank you.
Oh, we're live. I feel like singing a song. Yes, I've lived in Yaxley for since around about 2019, and we used to live in Stanground before, and there was a few places to go to for evening, out for a meal. I used to have a restaurant before, Matoni, which was in Hampton, which was a really nice place, and felt that Yaxley needed the Lancaster Club closed down just after COVID. So I just felt that Yaxley needed like a nice, because there's quite a lot of middle-aged and above sort of people in Yaxley that have nowhere really to go. There was a few places, there's Three Horseshoes and there's the Duck and Drake in Yaxley, and then out of Yaxley there's Hampton, there's some place in Hampton. So I just, and I like a nice glass of wine and a nice cocktail, and I thought a nice cocktail, glass of wine and sort of jazz bar, music bar, piano background music, that sort of stuff would be quite nice in Yaxley, and for the residents of Yaxley. It's had a lot of, in fact, I wish I bought the letters, but it's had, I emailed Sarah, she said it was too late, I should have bought the letters in first, letters of support. So it's been we've renovated the building since 2021, and the people, even the people on site, the builders have gone local, the majority from Yaxley. The people that I've got employed in the bar already were all out of work, and they were working at the Three Horseshoes, but that closed down. So I've got 5 new staff starting, hopefully, all unemployed. They all live down actually Main Street. All 4 of them live on Main Street in Yaxley, within a 2-minute walk of the Lancaster Lounge, and one lives on Broadway in Yaxley. And the environment we're trying to get is really just laid back, not loud music. We've even on the planning, Sarah May had noted that we had soundproof windows, soundproof glass, in the front of the building, insulation as well, so 80mm thick insulation all around the perimeter of the outside, so there was no noise, going outside. When I used to walk my dog by the Lancaster Club, although there were generally elderly people in there, they did know how to party, because there was karaoke going on mainly on the Friday and Saturday night, and it was with the windows open. We've got our own ventilation, so the windows won't be open. So we've covered every aspect to make sure that we keep the residents happy within that area and there's not noise. Of course, you're always going to get some noise. So I've tried to, so we've put a smoking area around the back rather than at the front, because when I had Matoni in Hampton, that was a problem. There was people smoking out the front, which, people chat and they talk quite loudly. Obviously, we've got neighbours to one side, we've got a fire station on the other side. So I've put a smoking area at the rear of the building so nobody will congregate out the front. I've even got the taxis, so I'm going to arrange for the taxis to come, because we've got quite a big outside area with a back door. So arrange for the taxis to come around the rear, so trying to motivate people to go out round the back, because I know when they leave out the front, it's a bit noisy. So trying to cover as many things as possible, because obviously it's we don't want to have any complications or trouble or anything like that. And the clientele we're trying to attract are the older clientele. In fact, one of the ladies that's coming to work as a manageress, Claire Hubbard, worked at the Three Horseshoes for 3 years. So she knows the people that we have to sort of be careful of, which is, we've done a lovely internal decor, very high end. Don't know if you want to show the picture, if that makes any difference, but we're allowed to show you this. The work lights won't be in there when we open So it's that sort of decor, and the drinks that we'll be doing are, you know, sort of higher end. So we're going to put the price a little bit higher to try and stop people that, you know, I mean, obviously we can't stop everybody coming in, and that's just the way it is. So we're trying as many ways as possible that there's not any problems or trouble at the place. You know, I think the decor will probably stop the people that want to go in for just a couple of pints with loudish. Hopefully, we'll stop that, because we're just trying to really attract a certain type of people, not wanting to discriminate in any way, but we just don't want any problems there. So, yeah, I think that's it. I think with the soundproof glass, the insulation, the sort of clientele we're trying to attract, the smoking out the back, we've trying to tick as many boxes as possible to keep it nice and quiet there. I think that's probably about it. If I missed anything, I think that's cool. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. So sorry.
Do members have any questions for the applicant?
Okay. Do any officers at present, licensing or council's legal representatives, have any questions? Yes. Do any of the people who have made representations have any questions for the applicant? This is for questions only. There will be an opportunity to make statements shortly.
I think the most questions will avail themselves when I make my representation. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now invite interested parties to address the subcommittee for no more than 20 minutes in total. May I remind you that representations must be relevant to the 4 licensing objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for permitting me to make my representation to the subcommittee. My name is Desmond Watt. I have lived in Yaxley since 1968. I currently live on the opposite side of the road at 191 Main Street, Yaxley. And I've lived at this address since 1990. And I just had a little thought while I was sitting out in the foyer. My father was an ex-RAF man, and when he came to Yaxley, he joined the RAF club, which was the occupier of this building. And I used to go there as a little boy to the children's Christmas parties. And it was at that time a very family-orientated, family-friendly place. And that tradition was carried on right up to the beginning of COVID, when it was forced to close. They had various outdoor events in the summer months, and I don't know what conditions were imposed on them by their licence, but they were very good at self-policing and being good neighbours, and we never had any problems or issues with them playing late music. And generally speaking, if they had a fun day or something like that and had a band in the garden, it would all be wrapped up by 9 o'clock, regardless of what the planning restrictions were on the licence. So just to give you a little bit of an insight into where I'm coming from, in terms of proximity to the front door of the Lancaster Lounge, if you were to stand at the front door of the Lancaster Lounge and look across the street at a 60-degree angle from the front door, there you would see my front door. And I timed it yesterday. it takes 27 seconds to walk across that street, which is 42 gentlemen's paces, so it's quite close. And having done that, I then stood with the front door to this building to my back, and I looked across into the front door of the Three Horseshoes on the other side of the road. It took me 13 seconds at a gentle walking pace, and it was 22 steps to get to the front door of the Three Horseshoes. I then turned to my right and walked back along the footpath to the front door of my house, and I was able to establish that the front door of the Three Horseshoes to the front door of my house was 32 seconds, and it was 49 paces. So you can see the scale of the whole thing. I could walk that triangle in just over a minute. So we are very close. With your permission, I'd like to take you or to announce my 5 talking points in brief, and then go through them again in a little bit more detail. But the whole presentation shouldn't take much more than 10 minutes. And I'll do my very best not to be repetitive. The first talking point is that both the outside recorded and live music aspect of the application are ringing alarm bells. They are a concern to me. The second point is the potential misalignment of operating hours between the Lancaster Lounge and the Three Horseshoes, a mere 13-second walk across the road, are very different. And that I'll make the relevance of that clear when I get into the detail. The absence of conditions requiring that the opening of windows and doors and thus cranking up the volume inside so that drinkers can still hear the music outdoors must be expressly by word forbidden in your terms and conditions. Item 4, that the proposed frequency of the outdoor music is 7 days, 52 weeks of the year, and that Good Friday and New Year's Eve may be extended into the wee small hours. Finally, item 5, that by imposing a liberal set of licensing controls onto this establishment would set up a challenge scenario whereby the licensee of the Three Horseshoes and the other licensed establishments in the village could successfully legally argue that they're entitled to a level playing field. So item 1 in a little bit more detail. For me, this whole application revolves around the problem of outdoor music. And I wish this was dropped entirely from the application, but I am prepared to be realistic. We're a sleepy old village located in a residential neighbourhood, and it is a conservation area of some notable character. The kind of operation that is being proposed would fit very well in a city centre, in a commercial retail zone, where there are less residents, like in the city of Peterborough, for example, or in a retail area in Huntingdon, or in a retail area in St Ives, or in a retail area in Ramsey. If there was, I would also add that from the policing aspect, it is easier to police one area, like in a commercial retail area in the town. The police can put a large van full of burly coppers in a side street. On call, if there's any trouble, they can attend an altercation in a pub within seconds or minutes. We don't have that kind of cover in Yaxley. And there's a problem with that. If there was a serious public disorder, could the police handle it? And if several towns and villages were experiencing multiple disturbances at the same time, how would our police force cope? The police do not have the manpower to be in several places at the same time, and we jolly well know that. Traditionally, rural village locations have been protected from noise nuisance during the night hours, and this is for the purpose of preserving the amenity of the area and for the purpose of reducing nuisance and to afford residents a reasonable quality of life. To grant this licence as it is setting a case precedent throughout the entire district, and it's a dangerous precedent. Item 2, with the 3 horseshoes being a 13-second walk, or maybe a 20-second crawl if you're that inebriated, here's an idea. Why not have a good night session drinking in the 3 horseshoes? Sup your last pint at 10:30 or 10:45, then cross over the road in order to line up some drinks at the Lancaster Lounge and enjoy a night of extended drinking in a residential area way behind traditional drinking hours in this kind of location. The other point to this is that it's not fair on the other licensed establishments in Yaxley. It's going to encourage binge drinking. And we must bear in mind that the 3 horseshoes has had issues with trouble with drunk customers. Item 3, it makes not a jot of difference if the outside music goes off before the stipulated time of closing, if the doors and windows are wide open, because all they need to do is to open the doors and windows, crank up the music, people can still enjoy loud music through the windows of the building. So conditions must be attached to this application that absolutely, beyond any misunderstanding, stipulate that if they want to continue listening to music or playing live music indoors after, say, 10 o'clock, that building is well and truly buttoned up to take the benefit of this expensive soundproof glass and soundproofing on the walls, because none of these things will have any effect whatsoever if the doors and windows are open. Item 4. If we residents were forewarned of a special extended hours event, we would at least have the option of booking a hotel somewhere for the night. But 7 days a week operation, 52 weeks of the year, means that we never know when we are likely to experience what one might call a loud night. Special extended hours need to be looked at very carefully in this application. I'm prepared to be reasonable. New Year's Eve, for example, is a global celebration, and I don't want to be a killjoy. And I would not object to that event being permitted as a one-off special event, because I know that it only happens once a year. But any other time for this kind of late night entertainment doesn't belong in a village. It belongs in a retail area in the middle of a city. Item 5. I have already mentioned that over-easy conditions could cause a landslide of applications for other establishments to extend their late night drinking hours and also to have music outside. This would not only apply to venues in Yaxley, because once this case precedent is set, you are actually opening the way for any pub in Huntingdon District to go the same way. In summary, I feel that this application does have a high probability of leading to crime and disorder, which by definition has to have an impact on public safety. In summary, it cannot fail to lead to a public nuisance. So apart from New Year's Eve, this venue is not suitable for opening hours that extend into the early hours of the next day. And I'm very close to the end, you may be pleased to hear. I copied and pasted a document from Ms Marden with reference to some counter proposals and some modifications to the Times. And what I've done is I've copied and pasted that letter into these notes, and I've put a few musings in red ink, because I'm sure at the end of the day you want to know, well, what does this moaner actually want that will satisfy him? So I'm going to explain that very quickly. According to Ms Marden, live and recorded musics, Mondays to Sundays, 12 till 2300 hours. Now, that needs to be stipulated indoors and not outdoors, because we're just over the road and I don't desire to be listening to loud music, not of my choosing and to my taste, when I'm trying to sleep and get some rest. What I'd like to see is that they cease all outdoor music at 10 o'clock, that windows and doors be closed at 10 o'clock or 2200. If music is being broadcast or performed live indoors. So essentially, they can have their windows open and the doors open if there's no music. But what we don't want to do is create a loophole for the applicant to switch his music off in the garden and then just crank up the music indoors and pump it out through the open windows and doors. Sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, Mondays to Sundays, 12 till 23. My suggestion is, and I don't know what hours the Three Horseshoes are working under, but it should be the same. To stop the exodus of drinkers from Three Horseshoes to go across the road, spending less money in the Three Horseshoes, spending more money in the Lancaster Lounge. I think this is anti-competition. It's an unlevel playing field, and it's just not fair on the landlord at the Three Horseshoes to see his business going out the door and across the road. So the hours have to be the same, in all fairness. The external customer area will not be used after 2300 on any day. I would say that the customer area should be closed at 22:30 and be firmly stipulated in the conditions. And the reason for this is that we know from experience from the Three Horseshoes that when things start to wind down inside and they're cleaning up for the night, people just hang around outside. They've lined up their drinks and they can hang around outside for as long as they like. And we're not going to get any peace, particularly in the summertime. In addition, a number of amendments to the application that have been agreed between the applicant and the police, these amendments will be added to the licence and should be granted. We're talking about the substantial food offering now. Well, obviously you need 30 minutes to consume your food at the very least. So the time when the kitchen closes needs to be before the time when business in this establishment closes. And I would again refer back to the permitted hours of the Three Horseshoes. I don't know what those hours are, but wherever they are, then you walk back 30 minutes from those hours, and that seems to me to be a fair and appropriate way to go. Staff will take all necessary steps to ensure that customers do not take partly consumed alcoholic products or drinking receptacles away from the premises. And Mr. Riccardi said, I was pleased to hear him say in his address that he was going to encourage everybody to remain round the back of the building. But it needs to be a watertight stipulation in the terms of the application for this licence that they will ensure that there's no parties hanging around on the public footpath at the front, still drinking perhaps, doesn't matter. They might have already drunk enough to be in high spirits. They might not yet want to go home. And I'm speaking from experience as a fact that wall next to the entrance to the club has often been used like a park bench for people who are not tired and don't want to go home to carry on laughing and joking and just typical revellers type noise. And when the rest of us have got a life to live, we need our sleep, we need our rest. It's good for our health, it's necessary. So there needs to be safeguards in place. The word needs to be firm, that these guys know under no certain terms. Assurances are one thing, but we need it in writing, that they're not going to do these things. So my objection to that item is that the direction that staff will take all necessary steps is subjective and therefore open to interpretation, and there are grave risks associated with that. Without these safeguards in writing, my life is going to be potentially, of occasion, unbearable. And I would propose that the hours, late night hours, be curtailed to a reasonable amount, so at least we have the hope of a good night's sleep on a few nights every week. Finally, thank you for listening. I have some rough notes, if it's okay to leave them with you. It's basically everything I've said. It's just transcripts. If you want to use those as an aid de memoir as you go away and discuss this, then I've got them here if you want them. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Firstly, are we allowed to accept those notes when we're discussing this?
As long as the applicants had sight of them and there isn't anything new in there.
Has the applicant have sight of the notes?
He can have a copy now if he wants a copy. And if he wants a few minutes to study the notes, it's exactly what I said. Give or take a dot and a comma.
It's not necessary at this time. Will we need them later then?
So I think everyone's taken note.
Okay. No, we won't be using those notes, but thank you. Do any members of the subcommittee have any questions at this time, or comments or questions?
Thank you. I just want clarification that this was a club beforehand and it had a licence for live music. But that was probably a condition of the licence that you could play live music. I just wondered whether it was, it does say, Mr. Watts did say that they had outside music. Admittedly, it was an RAF club, family friendly, as we say, and it would have been a members only. Yes.
So the applicant, is it relevant to this comment?
I just wanted to make a comment, that was all. Can I just state something as well? Obviously, with the licence application, we in section 5, we obviously stated in there, because the way that it's coming across to me is if the representation is making out it's going to be some very big, loud, crash, bang, wallop live music venue, which it's far from that. So I'm just going to read you section 5 in the application. The venue will be a cocktail wine bar serving tapas and an array of beautiful drinks and food. The venue will offer a relaxed and chilled atmosphere with music added into the mix as a background, with various live and acoustic acts complementing the environment. This is not, I'll state this now, anything like the pub over the road, which has constant issues. It's not live music. It's completely different to what you're thinking. And this is going to be a huge compliment to that village, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Sorry, could I just also, sorry, the speakers inside the Lancaster Lounge, we're just having them put up today. So I hope I get my premise licence, but they are that size, and they're on a amplifier, on a thing, acoustic, whatever they're called, amplifier, amplifier. So, and then I wanted to get some jazz players, like on the weekends. And again, the jazz players are not going to be going, we're not going to be playing drum and bass at 2 o'clock in the morning or anything like that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me. Sorry.
So the previous licence was a club premises certificate, so it was open to members only. I can't see that they had entertainment on their licence, but it wasn't necessary for a club, to be fair. But their the club certificate allowed alcohol until 11 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 10:30. But that licence is not really relevant to this, and it was surrendered in 2020.
Councillor Clark.
Okay, to the licensing officer, do we have a record of the Three Horseshoes opening times? Thank you. Not at this stage, only when we are. Thank you.
So I just have a comment that in terms of the actual planning application, it did come with conditions of up to 2,300 hours for both sale of alcohol and live music. Did you give representation at the time in 2022 when the planning proposal was coming through on this matter?
I wasn't informed that there was a planning application in.
To the officer, in terms of the issues around sorry, just 1 second. So the 4 principles: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of nuisance and the protection of children from harm. Were there any more comments from the police with regards to concerns in terms of mediating this?
No, the mediation that happened with the police resulted in those additional conditions being added, which the applicant was completely in agreement with.
Thank you. And just on that basis, with the applicant being in agreement with that, would you say then that's acceptable by the police in terms of mitigating the 4 licensing objectives?
Yeah, the police do generally look at, for mostly the licensing objective of prevention of crime and disorder. The conditions that are on there refer to things like ensuring that no underage sales take place, proper staff training, risk assessments for the need for door staff, things like that. So in terms of nuisance, it doesn't necessarily cover it, but it does in terms of prevention of crime of any description. Yeah.
Thank you. And also in terms of the original planning application that went through, in terms of the conditions, would you say that these licensing conditions that are here today are correspond with also the planning conditions as well?
I believe they do with the amended application or the amended application that came through, because the planning application was brought to our attention. So yeah, we did have a good discussion about that, and it wouldn't have been a case that even if the extended hours on the licence that were originally applied for, so the 1 o'clock in the morning time, you wouldn't have been able to use that time because your planning restriction didn't permit it. It wouldn't have been a case of we've granted one thing, and that means you can do it. If the planning restriction says lesser, that's the one you would have to have stuck with. That's why I asked for the application to be changed so that they were all in line, and it was easier for the applicant to actually control.
Brilliant, thank you. And the last point on this, in terms of what the representation, I'll come to you in a sec, representation has said about the issue with regards to music playing outdoors, in terms of the concerns around the 4 licensing objectives, particularly public nuisance, crime and disorder, public safety, in terms of the applicants, what's put forward here today. Is there any concern around that? With regards to what the representation has said? Thank you.
So one of the responsible authorities is environmental health. They would deal with anything to do with noise. If they had some concerns regarding noise issues, they were permitted to have obviously made a representation or mediate with you, as the police did, to make their concerns known. In this case, the environmental health, I don't think they contacted you at all, did they, on this case? So that indicates to me that they haven't got concerns regarding nuisance in this case.
Brilliant, thank you. The applicant, representation, thank you.
Yeah, going back to Councillor Jordan's earlier point, this club never, on a regular basis, played music outside. It was, by memory, probably one event per year. They never at any time aggravated us to the point where we would get in touch with your Environmental Services Department to make a complaint. They didn't aggravate us. Sometimes I even enjoyed the atmosphere myself. But it really concerns me that this, without conditions being imposed, could be 7 days a week, and they could play within their rights of the permission music outside until 11 o'clock, and that is unreasonable. And it should be curtailed to 10 o'clock outside, and in order to not slip through with a loophole by opening doors and windows, you need to prevent them from piping the music from inside the building to the outside between 10 and 11. And you need to be sure that there is strong wording in the permission that customers do not hang around out front of the building, which would be a nuisance, and that they remain round the back of the building. And if those kind of safeguards, which are decent, correct, compassionate guidelines, if you like, then I would love to see this pub or club or whatever you want to call it carry on. But don't make my life hell in the process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do any officers present for the licensing or the council legal representation, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Thank you. Does the applicant and your representatives have any questions?
I do have a comment to make. Just to make you aware, obviously when we do an application, we do obviously look at opening the venue 7 days a week on the application, but the actual plan is to open the venue on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and that's it. The outdoor music, it's not going to be, as we instructed you before, live music or anything out there. It will be background music that will complement the ambience which is very controllable by ourselves and can be controlled by decibels as well. So we will make sure the utmost that there'll be no music heard.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, any just last opportunity if there are any more comments and questions from anybody here? Yeah. And the applicant first.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Watt was concerned about the music, and I'm conscientious about that sort of stuff because I'm 57 years old, and, I wouldn't like to be having loud music. And we're as I said, the same size speakers inside the bar are the same size outside. So there's not going to be too much loud music, outside there. They don't pump out that. I didn't get whopping great speakers. So I don't think there's any concern for music outside. And it's a covered area we're going to be doing as well outside. I think you will not be hearing loud music. Thank you.
Thank you. And the representation, thank you.
They always say, beware of Greeks bearing gifts. If the applicant sticks to those sentiments that we've just heard, I'd be very happy. The devil is in the detail. You need to lock them in to what they've just said to make sure they stick by it. I think one of the things that was said was there'll be no live music outside. It needs to be in the conditions of the application that they not only, that they honour what they've just said, basically, because when this meeting is closed and these go into the public record forever and a day, this soft soap, these promises will be forgotten. And at a later stage, when there is a complaint, when there's a problem, they will say, well, it doesn't say anything in the terms of the licence. So the licence needs to be skillfully crafted to make sure that there are no loopholes which they can step through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll just pass a final comment before we move on, that we've had confirmation from the officer that it has been looked at by the police in terms of what the applicant has now mediated in terms of the timings of it. There has been no concern from the police and there has been no concern from environmental health. And I think, as the officer has rightly said, if there should be concerns, it would be picked up later on by environmental health to be considered. So I think that makes sense at the moment, at this present time. There has not been any concern by environmental health or the police. Thank you. I would now like to move on to the written representations from those who have indicated that they are unable to attend today. These are set out in your agenda pack. Does anybody have any comments or written representations received on the written representations received? Members of the subcommittee? No. Officers present or legal? No. And applicants? No. And interested parties? No. Okay, thank you. May I now invite the applicant and your representatives to sum up the application for a period of no longer than 5 minutes. Please do not introduce any new evidence to the proceedings. Thank you.
Okay, as a summary, so basically what we're trying to do is offer something different to the village of Yaxley, which is going to be a huge compliment. We're not here to introduce a live music venue or anything of that ilk. We're trying to offer different things to an ever-growing village that can complement all age groups as well. Our ideally our older age group, but we also are interested in the family element as well. So we want to try and complement exactly what the village really, we believe, really needs, and also to keep in with tradition, that's why we carried on with the name as well. We could have renamed it or anything, so we've included quite a lot of heritage within the venue as well. And when you see it open, you'll understand the heritage which is brought of the history of the club is incorporated into that as well. We believe obviously it's going to be a huge benefit, and it'll be a very popular venue that we will. I mean, I've been trading in this industry for just over 20 years now, so I've got very big knowledge and background, especially this type of environment and this type of venue. So I'll make sure that it's professionally run, and we're basically going to give something very positive to the village of Yaxley. Thank you.
Can I also? Yeah, it's been a huge investment into getting the decor. So last thing we want to do is risk by upsetting any of the neighbours and people around us. So I'm going to be there myself, certainly for the first 3 to 6 months. I've already got an experienced manager there running front of house, who's a little bit older than the rest of the floor staff. So we just want to, cover all bases. Of course, you can't control everything, and there's always going to be something, because I suppose it always is. So, that's just nature of life. But we will take every precaution to make sure that there's no trouble, no hassles, and certainly no loud music. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one passing comment and question to both the officer and yourselves around the issue around competition with the three horseshoes that was brought up by the representation. Were there any, or are there any concerns about unfair competition?
Competition is not usually something that falls under the remit of licensing.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, before we move on to item 6, the exclusion of press and public, the subcommittee will now retire to deliberate. The council's legal advisor will provide legal advice and to record the subcommittee's decision. We are unclear how the deliberations will take, how long the deliberations will take. Our decision will be sent to you all in writing as soon as possible. If you want to wait around, you are welcome to do so. The choice is yours. All parties do have the right to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days. Elizabeth, is there anything you wish to add?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. That leaves me to thank you all for your attendance today. We will now move on to item 6, the exclusion of press and public. Are members happy to exclude the press and public? I don't think there's anyone here, so thank you.